Hey, how's everybody doing? What's going on there now? Y'all know me. I'm a wrestling fan. Been into wrestling as far back as I can remember. The first match I remember seeing, I was 3 or 4, and it was George Animal Steel versus some jobber, and I was just fascinated because he had a green tongue and he bit the turnbuckle and ate the stuff. And for a long time, I thought his name was the Lizard. So I remember, like, a couple of years later, being at my cousin's house, and his cousin was over there, like, we're going to play wrestling, okay? Who you going to be? I'm going to be the Lizard. They ain't no wrestling. Here he is. But I've always been into wrestling. And one neat thing about modern tech is now, you got this print-on-demand thing, where anybody can get a book published nowadays. Amazon Create Space, I've done quite a few of these Amazon Create Space zines and comics and all that. What this is Way of the Blade. 100 of the greatest bloody matches in wrestling history, written by Phil Schneider, art by Chris Bryant. Phil Schneider. I have known of and talked to Phil Schneider since sometime in the late 90s. He's one of the original Death Valley Driver video review. It started off as like a e-zine on the Usenet group. Oh yeah, I'm dating myself here. Rec Sport Pro Wrestling. And basically what it was Dean Rossamon started up, then Phil Schneider got added, and a bunch of others. And they were tape traders. They reviewed tapes, got in. Oh man, you gotta, back then, there wasn't as much wrestling information on the net. And you couldn't just stream stuff. Oh man, it's New Japan match, you gotta see it. Make sure you talk to your dealer and get your tape. Well, Phil sat down and did this book. Now, it's a $20 book. There's something about blood that can take a routine professional wrestling match and turn it into a work of art. Blood spilled, pooling on the mat, or painting blonde hair red immediately raises the stakes of any match. In the business, they used to believe that red turned into green. When the blade emerged from its hiding place to scrape the forehead, box office receipts grew right along the scar tissue. It's visceral and arguably real. A physical reproduction of the age-old heckling every fan has heard a million times. It's all fake, isn't it? In Way of the Blade, Segunda Caída, Phil Schneider, a leading wrestling critic, internet wrestling pioneer with the Death Valley Driver video review, looks at 100 of the best, bloodiest matches in sports history. Starting in the 1950s and spanning decades and continents, Schneider tells the story of a very weird sport. You'll meet wrestling chickens and Nazi doctors, relive classics everybody knows, and discover some hidden gems previously witnessed by a mere handful of fans lucky enough to be in the building the night the carnage went down. Gorgeously illustrated by Chris Brown, this book is destined to become a classic in the burgeoning field of wrestling criticism and a handy guide for fans looking for insight into their favorites and to be introduced to new matches, complete with the context necessary to explain why and how they became legendary. This came out, I'm filming this in June. This was a birthday present for me. My birthday's in July. This came out probably in May or maybe early June. And I did tell Phil, I was like, look, I am getting a copy. I can't wait to read it. And he actually, if you can find Mr. Schneider somewhere and talk to him, I gotta find the doc. He has a list of all the matches that are available to watch on like YouTube or, any streaming thing like that. So you can go watch these matches. I want this book to do well. This is a great idea for a book. So that's why I'm doing the video. So let's get into it here. Hybrid Shoot's the name of the company. Okay, 2021. There's the introduction of Schneider. I like this art. Dr. Adolf Kaiser versus Meko Shinizi. French catch. Recently, over the past 4 or 5 years, Phil Schneider got a hold of a bunch of French catch wrestling, which is wrestling, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and been reviewing it and putting it online. It talks about the match. Golden Moose Cholot versus Larry Shinnie. This is IWA 1963, and look at that art. Now, I've heard of Golden Moose Cholot. Johnny Valentine versus Wild Bull Curry. Houston Wrestling, June 20th, 1969. Man, I think it's June 20th right now. I heard of Johnny Valentine and Wild Bull Curry. Killer Carl Cox versus Dick Murdoch. Oh, man, I love me some Dick Murdoch. Haven't seen a lot of Killer Carl Cox. And it's kind of weird that the guy that's got the wrestling name initials is KKK is facing the guy who was a card carrier member of the KKK. Yeah, Dick Murdoch was a Klansman. All Japan Wrestling, 76. Terry Funk versus Harley Race, Houston Wrestling, July 1st, 1977. God, I was young. Terry Funk and Harley Race were two of the titans of late 20th century professional wrestling. Race was partially trained by the Funk family and spent much of his early career in the Amarillo territory ran by the Funks. His feud with Terry and Dory Funk Jr. started in Amarillo and continued with Mad Dog Harley Race upsetting Dory Funk Jr. win the NWA World title in 73. Race lost the title to Jack Briscoe, who lost to Terry Funk. Terry held the title for a year before Race took it from him with a figure four layout. This match was Funk's attempt to regain the title. It gives you contacts, it gives you the combatants, and then collusion. Bruno Sammartino versus Superstar Billy Graham, WWF 1977, August 1st. Great art. And Brandon McBride, if you're watching, I know you're a big Bruno and Superstar fan. The Spoiler versus Wahoo McDaniel, Houston Wrestling, 4/21/79. Wahoo, there's so many. The generation before me, and people in my generation a little bit older than me, love them some Wahoo. And he's one of those guys I need to see more of. Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr. versus Abdul the Butcher and the Sheik, All Japan Pro Wrestling, July 15th, 1979. Bruno Sammartino versus Larry Zbyszko, WWF, August 9th, 1980. This is the cage match. I love this art. It's got that underground comic look to it. Jerry Lawler versus Dutch Mantell, CWA, March 29th, 1982. This is a Memphis match. Look at this, Bob Wire. I love me some Dutch Mantell. I love me some Jerry Lawler. Lawler's the best puncher in wrestling history, and conversely is the greatest seller of a punch in wrestling history. Sergeant Slaughter and Don Kernodle versus Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat, Mid-Atlantic, March 12th, 83. This is another classic. You don't hear much about Kernodle anymore or Jay Youngblood. Moondogs versus the Fabulous Ones, Memphis, June 13th, 1983. Is this is not the concession stand brawl, is it? Okay, here we go. This was barely a match with actual bell-to-bell time, only about 3 minutes, but as an entire package, it was super memorable. Both teams just started hurling chairs and 2x4s at each other. Referee Jerry Calhoun tried to intervene and got the hell beaten out of him by both teams for his trouble. Kieran punched him, spot kicked him, Lane smashed him with a chair. Calhoun actually took more punishment than any of the wrestlers amount. The timekeeper in Memphis had this heavy wood table and giant rainbow, and both got used memorably as weapons. Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine, Mid-Atlantic, July 9th, 1983. Is this it's a U.S. title match? Yes. Building up the Starrcade. Sangre Chicana versus MS1, EMLL, that's CMLL. August 23rd, 1983. This is a match I've heard so much about and never got to see, and I think that one should be on YouTube. A lot of luchas on YouTube, you know where to look. Buzz Sawyer versus Tommy Rich, Georgia Championship Wrestling, October 23rd, 1983. This is the Battle of Atlanta. Oh, here we go. I like this. For many years, they believed that there was no footage of this match and it became a legendary lost treasure, probably the single most desired holy grail in wrestling footage community. Then WWE found the match on a random box of tapes and released it as their first hidden gem on the WWE Network. Finally, more than 30 years later, people who couldn't make it to Dynamite night got to watch this, the Battle of Atlanta. Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine, Georgia Championship Wrestling, November 23rd, 1983. This is Starrcade. Yeah, Starrcade, which was, basically Starrcade was WCW, or whatever group you want to call it, the Crockett's version of WrestleMania. And it actually started for WrestleMania. Hector Guerrero versus Jose Lothario, Houston Wrestling, June 8th, 1985. Well, this was in June, July, and August. Houston Wrestling, man. I've heard so much about it. Sergeant Slaughter versus Iron Sheik, WWF, June, again, 16th, 1984. And look at that. Sheik's just like biting his head. I love this art, man. Terry Gordy versus Killer Khan, World Class, November 22nd, 84. Look at that. Just biting the hell out of Terry Gordy. And Killer Khan's one of the guys I haven't seen a lot of. I love me some Terry Gordy. Ric Flair versus Ted DiBiase, Mid-South Wrestling, November 6, 1985. This aired on their TV show. I saw it. I watched Mid-South every week. That was my fed, man. I mean, a lot of the other kids, especially if they got to see Crockett, and they got to watch Ric Flair, and they got to watch WWF with Hogan. I was a Mid-South fan because it came on every Saturday night, 9 o'clock, Channel 15. Even this, 85, I wasn't that old, but I was staying up to watch it. And if I started getting sleepy, I put a tape in and recorded it. Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard. Look at that. This is the I Quit Cage match. NWA, November 28th, 1985. This is a match that it blows my mind. When I got quite a few friends who are wrestling fans. They're younger than me. They're all between the age, I'll say between 24 and 34. One night, matter of fact, it was last year in like August, early September. We had a gathering over at a buddy of mine. Donovan, what's going on, sir? At his house. And I brought some wrestling DVDs. He's like, his uncle. We got to know him through his uncle. His uncle was a good close friend of mine. How you doing, Tommy? R.I.P., sir. His uncle had just passed. And after the after the services, when his uncle, his uncle's funeral, talking about we're going to get together and just hang out. Well, I knew Donovan. He lives in an area where there's no cable out there. He's on disability. Doesn't have satellite or whatever. So I brought some wrestling news. Donovan's like, I'll cook dinner, we'll all hang out and just talk and just kind of hang out, Because I'd known Donovan for about a year or so before then, but we've gotten fairly close. We're good friends now. I brought over was it Bloodyest Steel Cage matches or whatever that WWE, it was one of the early WWE DVD releases. Him and my buddy Philip, what's going on, Philip? Like the beard, had never seen this match. I'm like, holy shit, you never seen that I Quit match. And what you see in his hand, that's a piece of wooden chair that Blanchard's trying to shove into Magnum TA. I like this. Much of this book is dedicated to unearthing unseen gems from wrestling footage mines. The explosion of available wrestling for all the world, even matches from decades ago, has allowed us to see things that were long thought to have been lost forever. Still, there's something to be said for repping a classic. Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus Buzz Sawyer, Mid-South Wrestling, December 27, 1985. Man, Hacksaw. All you know of Hacksaw is the goofy Hacksaw from WWF and then WCW. Man, go find you some Mid-South Hacksaw. Dude was just a brutal, beat the hell out of you guy. Sangre Chicana versus Perro Aguayo, EMLL, February 28, 1986. Another lucha match. Akira Maeda versus Tatsumi Fujiyami, New Japan Pro Wrestling, June 12, 86. Notice there haven't been a lot of New Japan in here yet. Masanobu Fuchi versus Hiro Saito, All Japan Pro Wrestling, June 12, 86. Ric Flair versus Ricky Morton, NWA, July 5th, 1986. I'm assuming that's Flair's face getting mashed into the cage there. I remember there was a really good Ricky Morton Flair match for one of the Clash of the Champions. Bruno Sammartino, Tito Santana versus Adrian Adonis and Randy Savage, WWF, July 12th, 86. This is one. Okay, we're good. Match originally. Whoa. Originally appeared on the Inside the Steel Cage Coliseum home video, which is a beloved video run for kids growing up in the 80s. It's near the end of the Savage vs. Santana feud starting when Bruno was brought in as a special referee. El Hijo del Santo versus Espano Jr., EMLL, August 31st, 86. No, I have not seen. Invader number 1 versus Al Perez, WWC. That's Puerto Rico. That's you remember if you're younger fan, you remember Carlito Colon and Primo and Epico? They're all part of the Colon family. They worked in WWC. There was 2 feds in Puerto Rico. It was WWC and IWA. Man, Invader 1, that's the one that... Yeah, that's the one I think that did what he did. And talking about Puerto Rican wrestling has a long plasma-soaked history. Yeah, there's some bloody matches down there. Nick Botwinkle versus Kurt Hennig, AWA, November 21st, 86. This is a ruthless match. Stan Hansen defeated Rick Martel for the AWA title after Martel was offered a WWF contract. Hansen is heel champion and feuding with the new babyface Nick Botwinkle, who had spent ages in the territory as a villain. Promoter Vern Gagne asked Hansen to drop the title in Denver to Botwinkle, despite the fact that Hansen's primary employer, All Japan, had already advertised him as the AWA champion on the next tour. Hansen sided with All Japan and vacated the title instead. Botwinkle was awarded the belt and continued to feud with Larry Zbyszko, but also battled young second-generation wrestler Kurt Hennig, who younger fans will know him better as Mr. Perfect, who just come off an AWA tag title run. This match was aired on ESPN on New Year's Eve and was one of the highest profile television matches in modern AWA history. This was one of those matches, even though I didn't have cable back then, I remember hearing about this kid that's going, man, you missed it. It was really good. Terry Gordy versus Steve Williams, UWF, February 6, 1987. This is another one, man. UWF was what Mid-South became, and these two just had a feud. Carlos Colon versus Stan Hansen, WWC, March the 14th, 87. It's a cage match in a baseball stadium, and lack of seats on the ground really makes it look like a Roman gladiator fight. Jerry Lawler versus Austin Idol, CWA, Memphis, of course, April 27, 1987. Yoshiaki Fujiwara versus Riki Choshu, New Japan Pro Wrestling, June 9th, 1987. Look at that heart, man. Just amazing. Four Horsemen with the Road Warriors and the Superpowers, NWA, July 4th, 1987. This is part of the Great American Bash, I'm guessing. Flair was a cocaine-fueled stockbroker ranting about his expensive suits and voluminous female conquest. I fuck that word. Eddie Marlin versus Tommy Gilbert, Memphis, April 4th, 1988. Many Memphis fans have been watching forever and often have feuds and angles, and you would often have feuds and angles which refer to events 15 or 20 years in the past. Peretta Morgan versus El Dandy. Look at that, man. Just spitting the blood up. EMLO, August 23rd, 1988. Terry Funk versus Ric Flair. Oh, I remember seeing this. WCW, July 23rd, 1989. I remember watching it. Every Terry Funk match has a little bit of a different vibe, a little different tempo, a slight twist, and he forces Formula guys out of their established patterns. Tatsuo Nakano versus Masakatsui Funaki. I'm horrible at pronouncing Japanese names. I try my best. So UWF, this is not the Watch UWF. This is a different UWF. In Japan, after the one here in the States closed up, that started. I remember being confused by that as a kid. I'd be looking, UWF quit air. I'm like, fuck, man, there's no UWF anymore. And I'd be reading the rest of the magazine. Oh, it moved to Japan. And I thought it was the same one because Dr. Def Williams was there. I'm like, oh, man. I remember, trying to figure out, could I get, Japanese TV somehow? I remember around this time, we came up to visit some friends, not too far from where I live now. A little place called Sontab, Mississippi. They had a C-band satellite dish. I remember spending hours just scouring, trying to find Japanese TV. It's like watch Japanese wrestling. Yoshihaki Fujiwara versus Kazuyo Yamazaki, UWF, July 24th, 89. Jushin Liger versus Naoki Sano, New Japan Pro Wrestling, January 31st, 1990. Atsushi Onita and Tarzan Goto versus Kendo Nagasaki and Masanino Kirushi, FMW, April 1st, 1990. Okay, this is Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling. This is where your hardcore shit started. Basically, your hardcore ECW, that kind of crazy shit, is a mixture of FMW and Memphis and Puerto Rico. Yeah, this is. I can't wait to get into this book. I'm reading another book right now. Peretta Morgan versus El Farano, I'm guessing, November 16th, 1990. Atsushi Onita versus Tarzan Goto, FMW, February 26, 91. Jerry Lynn versus Lightning Kid, PWA, April 8th, 91. PWA, what is PWA? Okay, I have no idea then. El Hijo del Santo versus Brazo del Oro, UWA. This is another one. They're down in Mexico. I mean, most people know AAA and nowadays it's AAA, The Crash, and CMLL. But there was other groups like UWA, IWRG. This is November 13th, 91. Akira Tao versus Toshiaki Kawada, All Japan, November 15th, 91. It's going to be a long-ass video here. Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart, WWF, March 5th, 92. Match was the end of Piper's last in-ring stint with the WWF. No, because he came back and had the fight with Goldust. Okay, so, Phil, unless I've read that wrong, you got something wrong there, sir. Sting Squadron versus The Dangerous Alliance, WCW, May 17th, 92. This is War Games, I'm sure. And that's one thing, I never saw a lot of War Games that people rave about. This is the greatest War Games match ever. 10 great wrestlers, all at or near their peaks in a blood-soaked fist fight in the cage. Great Muta versus Hiroshi Hase, New Japan, December 14th, 92. Terry Funk versus Eddie Gilbert, WWA, November 14th, 1992. Okay, this is just an indie fed kinda. Huh. Sting versus Vader, February 12th, 93. Look at that Sting. It's Super Brawl. Apparently, Sting had his blade tipped his finger and he accidentally gigged Vader, who came out of the corner pumping blood from his ear. Shinobu Kandori versus Akira Hokuto, All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, April 2nd, 93. Okay, this is Joshi Wrestle Women's Wrestling in Japan. Women do not work in the same feds as the men, except for like FMW over in Japan. It's separate fed. Riki Choshu, Shinya Hashimoto versus Genichiro Tenryu and Takahashi Ishikawa. War, which is Wrestling and Romance. Maybe the greatest wrestling fed name ever. And this is from April 2nd, 93. Was formed in Genichiro Tenryu after the collapse of Super World Sport. Cactus Jack versus Vader. Look at that, man. WCW, April 17th, 1993. This is the match that got Cactus a lot of attention. Cactus Jack was an odd but compelling foe on every man with a screw loose, possibly the only man crazy enough to stand in front of the Wild Bull and stare him down. Terry Funk versus Atsushi Onita. FMW, May 5th, 1993. This is one of the exploding ring matches. I'm pretty sure it is. Onita is a great spectacle wrestler of all time. This is his greatest spectacle. Aja Kong versus Yumiko Hata, All Japan Women, January 24th, 1994. Heavenly Bodies versus Rock and Roll Express. This is a cage match. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Oh yeah, April 1st, 1994. Ain't no fool. There's a lot of blood here. This is a classic Rock and Roll Express with all the beats you expect from that match. Dustin Rhodes versus Bunkhouse Buck, WCW, April 17th, 1994. This is just an old-fashioned Southern fist fight. Jeans, t-shirts, and tape fists. Koto Fuyuki versus Kendo Nagasaki. And this is the Japanese Kendo Nagasaki, not the Kendo Nagasaki from the UK. Another war. This is November war match. November 24th, 1994. Blacktop Bully versus Dustin Rhodes. I know this is from Uncensored. WCW, March 19th, 1995. This is Blacktop Bully is, you know him better as Smash a Demolition, Crusher Khrushchev, Barry Darso. This came during the darkest pre-Russo era of WCW history. After the excellent overall in-ring in 1984, Eric Bischoff brought in Hulk Hogan and all the stink Hulk Hogan brings when all of a sudden Arn Anderson was losing boxing matches, Johnny B. Bad and getting squashed by a fake Ultimate Warrior. Ric Flair is running around dragged, Nasty Boys and Harlem Heat are throwing popcorn and candy at each other. And this is the match I got both the guys fired because they weren't supposed to blade. Headhunter A versus Headhunter B, IWA, May 1st, 1995. These are twins from Puerto Rico, big fat guys. You ever watch the Stranglemania stuff, the Mushroom Brothers? That's the Headhunters. And this was the IWA Japan. Gangsters versus the Thugs. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. May 20th, 1995. The Thugs was Tracy Smothers and the Dirty White Boy. T is for terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail because a thug can't spell. When Tracy Smothers passed away last year in October, Steve Anthony, one of the best heels in the South, came out and did that. I'm right there filming. I'm like, man. I had a big-ass smile on my face, and he looked over and noticed I was smiling. He was like, yeah, this kid does. The Gangsters were racial in a way which, at minimum, pushed boundaries and at the maximum was blatantly racist. Great Muta versus Hakushi, New Japan, April 29th, 96. Hakushi is a guy, mostly people know him from WWF. He had all the tattoos on him. Genichiro Tenryu versus Tatsumi Fujinami, New Japan, April 29th, 96. Combat Toyota versus Megumi Kudo, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, May 5th, 96. And that's probably an electrified barbed wire match. This match got a lot of praise for having wrestling in a death match, but the dramatic explosion by far the coolest part of the whole affair. El Hijo del Santo versus El Dandy versus Negro Casas. This is a CMLL, December 6, 1996. Bret Hart versus Steve Austin. This is the WrestleMania match that made both their careers. Sabu versus Sandman. First ECW match is a late one. January 10th, 98. Shinja Hashimoto versus Naoya Ogawa, New Japan, January 1st, January 4th, 99, excuse me. Atlantis versus Villano 3. This is a bloodbath. CMLL, March 7th, 2000. Tajiri versus Steve Corino, ECW. This would be May 14th, 2000. Great match. Steve Austin versus Kurt Angle. This would be August 19th, 2001. El Hijo del Santo versus L.A. Park, Monterey Lucha, December 23rd, 2001. Another great man. And this is the La Parker, you know, from WCW. Iron Rotten versus Chris Hero, IWA Mid-South. Fuck yeah. May 4th, 2002. Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, WWE, November 20th, 2002. We're getting in the end here. Yuji Nagata versus Kazunari Murakami, I'm guessing, New Japan, December 12th, 2002. Steve Corino versus Homicide. Oh, man, look at that. Ring of Honor. Got a Ring of Honor. August 16th, 2003. Eddie Guerrero versus JBL. This match, man. That don't even come close to how much blood was on the mat. This is a WWE match, May 16th, 2004. Probably the best match JBL ever had. Daisuke Ikeda versus Yuki Ishikawa. This is Futen. Never heard of him. April 24th, 2005. Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe. IWA Mid-South. June 11th, 2005. Is this the one? I think it's the one where like Necro Butcher like just hurls a VCR at Samoa Joe. This, however, was Apex Samoa Joe, the biggest ass kicker in the world, coming into the ECW arena to beat the hell out of the craziest hobo in the homeless shelter. CZW versus Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, July 15th, 2006. I remember just that match getting hyped the hell and back. Team Anarchy versus Devil's Rejects. NWA Anarchy, July 22nd, 2000. NWA Anarchy grew out of NWA Wildside. If you have IWTV, go watch some NWA Wildside. If you're like an AJ Styles fan, you're going to see his early stuff. There's such a great fit, and there's so much of that up on IWTV now. Devil's Rejects versus NWA Elite, NWA Anarchy, June 23rd, 2007. Eddie Kingston versus Chris Hero, IWA Mid-South, August 29th, 2007. Jimmy Jacobs versus BJ Whitmore, IWA Mid-South, March 1st, 2008. Low-Key versus Chris Hero, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, November 2nd, 2008. Yeah, we're getting near the end because I'm fixing to run out of time. Kevin Nash versus Mick Foley, TNA, a TNA match, Matic. August 16th, 2009. Sami Callihan versus Danny Havoc, CZW, December 12th, 2009, man. RP Danny Havoc. Black Terry, Dr. Cybernerico, Chico Shea versus Avis Man, El Hijo del Diablo, Gringo Loco, IWRG, March 7th, 2010. There's nothing more than Fat Luchador's Gonna Fly, and he's one of the greatest flashes in wrestling. El Polo versus Commando Negro, IWRG, December 26, 2010. Dick Togo versus Antonio Honda, DDT, January 30th, 2011. Mil Muertes versus Phoenix, Lucha Underground, January 25th, 2015. It's been that long already. Trauma 1 versus Kenon Lupus, IWRG, April 29th, 2016. Black Terror vs. Wotan Chilangia Mask, August 21st, 2016. Leviathan versus Wotan versus Drago versus Toxicio versus Lunatic Fly versus Meteor Extreme versus Cyclope. Zona 23. Wow, Zona 23 match made it. This will be June 10th, 2018. Slim J versus Corey Hollis, Anarchy Wrestling, July 28, 2018. Joseph Bishop versus Dominic Greeny, AIW, which is a Cleveland-based fed, April 4th, 2019. Cody versus Dustin Rhodes, AEW, excuse me, May 25th, 2019. Amazing match. Probably the best AEW match I've ever seen. Blue Demon Jr. versus Dr. Wagner Jr., AAA. Wow, there's only a AAA match on here. This will be August 3rd, 2019. That's how it's going to end. Shamrock book. Okay. And man, look at that. Just look at all these great matches I'm going to have to go track down now. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you want to copy this, it's on Amazon. And just go around your wrestling forum. Shrill Snyder posted a lot. Mention him you saw the video and like a list of where you can find the matches that are out there. And he'll hook you up. He's a really nice guy. I'm out, everybody. Laters.